Okay, it's not letting me start my video, Sana. It says the host has stopped it.
Same.
Okay. 1 second. It shows. I have to like manually make the change on here apparently. Did you get anything, Jolie?
Yes, now I can do it.
Okay. I'm doing the same for you, Andrea. Give me just a second. It's not letting me. So weird. It's like I can't do it for Andrea. Like it's not enabling the.
Oh, you see me under, even when you go under participants?
Yeah. I'm looking right under there, actually.
Can you do that now, Andrea? I made you co-host.
Okay, now.
Yay!
Yay!
Nice to see you.
Takes a village.
Hi.
I don't know why this keeps cutting off my shoulder on this side.
Oh, it's something when you do the background for some reason.
Yeah, I don't understand why it does that. Well, it's like a magic shoulder. Sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not.
Sometimes it disappears.
It's just how it's going to be.
I think we have one participant. So.
Okay, we'll give it a few minutes and see if a few more people come. Okay, can you guys see that?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, I can see it.
That's where you're supposed to see. Okay, I think we have a couple people in the room. We'll just give it another minute or two before we get started. Okay, well, I guess we can just get started. We have a very small group today. We'll see if we have more students coming in and out as we go. We're going to sort of talk in a bit more of a general sense about all the broad range of international experiences that we offer at AU. But if you want us to focus in a little bit more on the kind of experience that you had, you're welcome to add a comment in the Q&A about which program you participated in or which degree program you're in currently. And certainly if you have questions as we go, feel free to ask them. My name is Jolie Roetter. I'm the Director of Global Learning Programs in COGAD. My colleague from the Career Center, Andrea Carpenter, is here to present with me today. And my colleague from COGAD Global Learning, Sana Udin, will be serving as our moderator today. Okay, so I always like to start by talking a little bit about US study abroad statistics, because when we're at a school like AU, study abroad and international experiences is so integrated into what we do. It can almost seem like, well, everybody has an opportunity to study abroad in college or in graduate school. But the reality is very, very different. At AU, about 60% of our undergrads study abroad. But nationally, it's still fewer than 10% of undergraduate students who have the opportunity to study abroad for any period of time. And by far, the majority of those are programs that take place in less than 3 weeks. So they're relatively short-term experiences. The number of graduate students who have the opportunity to study abroad is even less. When you continue to narrow down on students who had an internship experience or a volunteer experience, or students who studied a foreign language, the numbers keep getting smaller. So having a study abroad experience is something that can be really beneficial to you as you're looking for jobs or applying to graduate programs later on. But just having it on your resume isn't going to sell itself. You have to sell the experience as well. So that's what we're really going to talk about today, is how do you talk about your international experiences so that they'll add value. We also talk a lot about experiential learning. You can do experiential learning while you're on campus, while you're online, or while you're traveling abroad. But experiential learning is generally defined as anything that allows you to experience a profession to deepen the understanding of what you're learning in the classroom. Study abroad isn't in and of itself experiential, but there are many aspects of a study abroad experience that are experiential. So those of you who may have participated in global consulting projects through your program, that's experiential. If you had an internship, if you lived with a homestay family and you spent your days interacting with them, those kinds of experiences are experiential. Advantages of experiential learning include familiarity with a new profession, networking, demonstrating, and developing soft skills. Then we'll talk about marketing international experiences, and I'll turn it over to Andrea a little bit to speak about what employers look for.
Yeah. So we talk a lot in business school about this idea of reverse engineering, right? Especially in career services. If you have a sense of where you want to go, then you can kind of work your way backwards and create a path to get there. So I always like to start by looking at what are employers actually looking for. And this research comes out of NACE. NACE is the National Association of Colleges and Employers. And so it is an organization that does a lot of research of, again, for students coming out of school, their employability. They survey employers year after year to ask them, what are the key competencies that you're seeking? And they've seen such clear trends year over year that these are kind of the top 8 that continuously come through. Critical thinking, problem solving, communication, so both written and oral communication, teamwork and collaboration, digital technology, leadership, professionalism and work ethic, career management, and global and intercultural fluency. So they are looking for these competencies to be demonstrated through your resume, your LinkedIn profile, your cover letters, your interview skills, right? We talk about how throughout a process, an employer is gathering these different data points about you. And that's why we're going to touch on those materials today. Now, you can see a very clear connection, certainly with global and intercultural fluency. That's something that absolutely, being able to highlight your international experience, that is a way that you're demonstrating that. But really, all of these competencies can be demonstrated through your international experience, your communication, right? Your career management, your ability to think critically and problem solve. So I want you to be thinking as we go through the different slides and talk about your materials that you'd be using in an application. Think about how you could be weaving your international experience, again, into all of those different aspects of your search, and how you could be highlighting how you've demonstrated each of these competencies throughout that process.
So there's a lot of skills that can be gained from having an international experience. Learning to communicate across cultures is a big one. And when we talk about communication, we're not just talking about foreign language skills, but we're talking about the nuances of communication. Understanding how to communicate a point, how to make an introduction, engage in a conversation with people. Flexibility is a huge one. Many of our students have gone on short-term programs to another country where we've had a business meeting scheduled to begin at 10 a.m. and we've been there and ready to go at 9:55, and we wait and we wait and we wait and we wait some more, and then we're running late for a later meeting. Being flexible and understanding how to adjust how you operate given those conditions is really important. Being organized, public speaking, handling ambiguity and solving problems, being able to adapt to a new cultural or professional environment, and time management is a big one. Very often, when we think about the skills that we gain from study abroad, we tend to focus in on the academic aspects. So the classes that we've taken, the assignments that we have completed, but I think it's really important to think beyond that. So learning to navigate public transportation system in a foreign country where you don't speak the language, for example, is a really great learning experience. It allows you to problem solve, to figure out how to ask questions, to use all of your skills really to navigate away. So you don't need to share one now, but I encourage you to start to think about an experience that you had on an international program, whether it was an in-person international program or one of our virtual programs, and how that could be incorporated into a job interview. What I always tell students when I talk to them is to think ahead a little bit and imagine that you're in an interview for a position, and the person who is interviewing you looks at your resume and says, I see you had a study abroad experience. Tell me about that experience. What are the kinds of things that you want to say? A lot of our students say it was a lot of fun, I had a great time, and I met a lot of people, and that's something that's valuable. But get a little deeper than that. What are the things that you want to be able to say and sell about your experience? I'll turn this, I think, over to Andrea to talk about incorporating your experience on your resume.
Yeah, so remember that your resume is often going to be one of the first things that an employer sees about you, unless maybe they've seen your LinkedIn profile, right? But you're using your resume to talk about your experience. But really, your resume should be highlighting your accomplishments. So it's not just highlighting what you've done, it's highlighting what you've accomplished. And it should kind of tell the story of who you are a bit, because as an employer is looking at your resume, they're again gathering information about you from looking at your education, looking at the different internships or jobs that you've had, and then certainly looking at that international experience. So we have highlighted here a few different ways that you can consider highlighting your immersion experience. So you might decide to put it in under your education section. And again, as you're a student, unless you are working full-time while you're a student, your education experience is going to be right up at the top of your resume, because right now your education is your full-time job, right? So many students will choose to put that experience right underneath their education section, since it's something that you're highlighting. Make sure too, we really encourage, especially if you are taking classes in another language while you are having international experience, make sure that you're really highlighting that as well, because again, that is demonstrating a lot of skill and competency. Another option is that you could put it under your experience section, or you could have a specific international experience section. This might make sense if you had more than one international experience, or for example, if you had some that were in the context of an academic program and then you have some that's not. And then a third place is to put it in your skills section and to really focus on the top skills and those that you can expand upon in an interview. I meet with many students who have studied abroad, but also traveled to many different countries, right? And so and a lot of times they don't think to put it on their resume, because for them they say, well, some of those may have been other types of travel experiences, right? But that's still saying something about you. That's still saying something about what you've valued, or again, the number of places that you've been, especially if you've lived in a place for more, it hasn't just been a vacation, you actually have spent quite a bit of time in another country. So really think about how can you be highlighting that on your resume. And again, if you've been to several different countries, sometimes it can make sense to kind of write that out under your skills section as either international travel or international experience. Also wanted to make sure to mention here that, remember, you have access to resume review. So you're always welcome to come meet with our office to review your resume. We recommend as kind of a first step to make sure that your resume is in Kogod's template. You have access to the template and resume instructions in Handshake under Career Center resources. And then remember that you can upload your resume to our VMOC review system. It is personalized to our resume template and instructions. And what that will do is it will give you feedback on your format. So if you have any dates that are out of alignment or anything like that, it will let you know. But it will also tell you, hey, here's what we're seeing about how you're demonstrating competencies or how you're demonstrating skills. So many interview processes and application processes now are virtual, that this gives you a good idea of how your resume will show up in that virtual space. That if an employer is using an applicant tracking system, and if that applicant tracking system is trying to get a sense for leadership and is looking for folks with, again, global intercultural fluency, how is your resume going to be demonstrating that?
So we have a couple of examples of different resumes. I've just pulled some blurbs so you can see how some people have put their international experiences in their resume. And there's as Andrea mentioned, there's a number of different ways that you can do it. It may vary based on the type of program that you've completed or how many study abroad experiences you have had as a student. So this student has their education section above, and then they added a separate international experience section. And this is a student who didn't just mention they went on an international business immersion program in the locations, but they actually expanded a bit on the content of that program. And I think that's a really nice way to convey the value of the experience that you had. And of course, thinking about and customizing what you're going to include in that description based on the kinds of positions that you're applying for. So think about what those employers are looking for and what you can pull out of that international experience. Another example with an international experience section.
We also wanted to mention how to highlight your experience on your LinkedIn profile. Many business recruiters will view LinkedIn profiles. And studies have shown that they will view LinkedIn profiles even if they have not been recruiting directly on LinkedIn. So for example, if you apply to a job through Handshake or you apply to a job directly through a company's website, often they will still then go to LinkedIn to view more about you because that's kind of your professional profile. So here we've highlighted that, again, you want to be demonstrating your international experience on your LinkedIn profile. So we've listed a few specific examples where you can talk about what you learned, right? Especially if it was an academic experience. But remember that being able to demonstrate a skill is always going to be stronger than if you were just talking about what you learned. So anytime that you can talk about how you demonstrated something, that's going to help an employer kind of see you stepping into a role. So be specific. Here we've made it a little bit more concise. So demonstrated knowledge, skills, qualities necessary to engage responsibly and effectively in a global business environment. But you might then want to be a little bit more specific about how did you do that, right? What did that look like? You always want to think both for your resume, for your LinkedIn profile, think about terms of scope and result. What did you do? Why did it matter? And again, the great thing with your LinkedIn profile is you have a little bit more leeway and space than you have with your resume. So certainly, once you have a strong resume, there's a lot that's going to be on your LinkedIn profile that can be similar to your resume, but you can personalize your cover photo. So, you know, you have your headshot on your LinkedIn profile, but then you have kind of like a cover photo that can go behind it. So maybe that is a picture from when you've been on an international experience, right? Maybe your summary is talking about your international experience. Think about the variety of different ways throughout your profile that you can highlight what you've done, because this is, again, it's going to be part of your personal brand. And again, just making a plug for some of the resources that CodeGod has made available to you. Remember that similar to how you can use VMOC, similarly to how you can use VMOC to review your resume, there's also the Aspire function of VMOC that will then look at your LinkedIn profile and provide you with feedback. And again, we say do your resume first, because then what the account will do is it will say, hey, you know, we noticed that you have this experience on your resume, which is great. Here's how you could translate that to your LinkedIn profile. And again, we are always happy to meet with you in the Office of Career Engagement to then really go through your profile and make sure that it's representing you well and working effectively for you. And then cover letters. Sometimes we have students ask, do I need to use a cover letter? Do I really need a cover letter? Do employers really use them? And the answer is, it depends. So there certainly are some industries where cover letters are not as common. For example, sometimes there are some accounting roles where the employer will say, well, we don't really look at the cover letter. We are going to focus more on the resume. But then we have a lot of other accounting employers who say, no, we really do like cover letters. So pay attention to the application instructions. If there is an option for you to include a cover letter, I encourage you to, because otherwise that's a missed opportunity. Your cover letter is serving as your introduction. So think about it this way. If you had the option between just handing a hiring manager your resume or handing the hiring manager your resume and saying a little bit about yourself, introducing yourself and telling them why you're interested in the position, that's what your cover letter is doing for you. It's not just rehashing everything from your resume, it's translating it. It's saying, you know, here is a little bit about my qualifications, my motivation, and my fit for the role. Often folks will be able to get a sense of that from your resume. They might say, oh, well, they interned at a similar company, and so that might be why they're interested in us. But your cover letter is going to highlight that for them. And again, this is a great opportunity to be able to highlight your international experience, right? What are the buzzwords that you want to use? How can you demonstrate your skills and experience? And then how can you help translate that and help them see how you're going to be a qualified candidate? And so one area might be that when you're looking at some transferable skills, you might be saying, well, studying abroad at X, I did blank, right? So again, you're going to be calling attention to that experience to make sure that they're then going back to your resume and seeing exactly what you did.
So after studying abroad, we think it's always important to reflect on your experience and think about how it may impact you in the future. And so thinking about what was the biggest challenge that you faced while you were abroad, and that may have been trying to figure out public transportation. It may have been that you were doing an internship or you were doing a consulting project working with an international team, and you really struggled to communicate and really understand what was expected of you. But thinking about what are the challenges that you encountered and how did you ever overcome those challenges? What did you like most about the experience? And in particular, were there things that were really unexpected that you enjoyed? What challenged you the most? So things that maybe you anticipated would be tough, but you didn't really anticipate how tough. Have you noticed any changes about yourself since returning? Do you view things differently? Do you envision a different path for yourself career-wise than you may have before? What did you learn about yourself? So what about the study abroad experience really allowed you to look inside and learn about yourself? What are your strengths? How did your experience change your perception of your goals or your life plans? I very often work with undergraduate students, in particular first-year students, who will come into my office and they'll say, I want to go on 2 programs. I know that I want to go on this program, second semester of my sophomore year, and second semester of my junior year, I want to go on this other one. And I always say, do one first, come back, and then let's reevaluate. And in almost every single case where I've worked with a student in that situation, their plans have changed once they came back. Many students still look at other international experiences, but sometimes the things that they want to focus on have changed a little bit. When you interview, and I'll ask Andrea to talk a little bit more about this as well, but it's really important to talk about your international experience in a meaningful way. So don't just say it was really fun and I had a great experience. Expand on that a little bit. And you also don't want to make assumptions about what the person who's interviewing you might know about what a study abroad experience is like. Andrea, do you want to speak a little bit about interviewing?
Yeah, so we often recommend prepping your answers, again, thinking through either a STAR or a PAR format. So for STAR, you can think of situation, task, action, result. That helps you come up with really strong responses, right? So if you say, if someone asks you, describe a time in which you had to adapt to a new situation, your situation would be setting the context for maybe where you were studying abroad or what you were doing, right? And then you get into the specific, what the task was or what the challenge, what you did, and then what the result was. To prep for interviews, you're not going to always know every question that they're going to ask you. But when you're looking through a job description, you can get a sense for the skills that you're looking for. And you can kind of bullet out for yourself. You can say, okay, they have said they want someone with strong time management. They said they want someone who has worked internationally. They want to know about someone who has good experience working under pressure, right? And then you can prep some responses, your kind of STAR stories, as we would say them, that will respond to those. In other situations, again, one of the strongest ways that you can prepare is just to think of 8 to 10 of those STAR stories where you've bulleted out your situation, task, action, result. Think of 8 to 10 of those, right? You can have some that have to do with your international experience. You can have some that have to do with being in classes and working with many different students from a variety of areas. And then you can have some that have to do with your internships. And that way, if you have those examples ready to go, no matter what question someone asks you, you'll be able to think of a relevant example that you can provide. And then our tip here is, again, you can always come talk to us, come talk to Jolie about how to talk about your specific experience. You can also, if you want some virtual prep, you can use Big Interview. We have your access code and everything available on Handshake. That will give you, you can practice and you can give yourself feedback, but it also has AI powered feedback. So it will tell you, hey, here's how your eye contact was. Here are the times that you said, here's times when you use really strong power words. And so that can help you too get a sense for your interview skills. And again, we just say use that as a starting point, but then come practice with an advisor so we can make sure that you're really highlighting your international experience.
So I think it is important to mention that, of course, the pandemic has had a humongous impact on study abroad, but it doesn't mean that it has made it impossible for our students to have international experiences. And we've run a number of virtual programs over the past, 7 months, 8 months that we've been going through this, and we'll continue through the rest of the year. So some of our global consulting programs have moved completely online. Our online MBA immersions have gone international. There's a lot of value to virtual international experiences as well. And I think that can really provide an opportunity to have some meaningful conversations about your ability to pivot to a different environment, to make quick adjustments. It can be a little bit harder to communicate with people across borders and across cultures when you're doing it virtually. So it's a whole new skill set that you've had to learn and had to adapt to. And those things can be really valuable for you. So I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but don't make assumptions on what an employer may or may not know about a study abroad experience. And I'll use an example. So let's say you're an undergraduate student and you studied abroad for a semester in a program in Germany. If you just say to the interviewer, I studied abroad at a university in Germany, they might say, well, that sounds cool. It's great to study abroad in another country. But what they may not know is that in Germany and in many other places, your entire grade for a whole semester is based solely on one single final exam. And so you've had to completely restructure the way that you manage your academic work throughout the semester and pace yourself while living in a foreign environment, while trying to navigate a language that may be unfamiliar to you on a daily basis. Those are some really big challenges that require some really big adjustments. But your ability to make those adjustments can be really valuable. And so it's important to expand a little bit on the experience that you've had to make sure that the person who you're talking to about it can understand. Don't go on forever and ever. Succinct and concise is always key, but it's really important that you consider that the person who's asking you about your study abroad experience may not have had the opportunity to study abroad themselves. As we discussed, it's fewer than 10% of US university students who've had the opportunity to study abroad. So in fact, it's more likely than not that the person who's asking you about your study abroad experience hasn't studied abroad themselves. Remember that out of class components can carry as much value as the academic elements of the program. So on your way home from your classes at the end of the day, navigating public transportation, stopping and running errands, engaging in negotiations with people. If you're in a country where the majority of the shopping that you do is in a market and everything is a negotiation, negotiating for a t-shirt in a market is a really valuable skill. So remember that those components to the experience can be really valuable as well. Traveling long distances is a good one, and adjusting to different time zones. Balancing your responsibilities at work. So maybe you're one of our MBA students who did an immersion. You're still working full time while participating in immersion as well. You might have family responsibilities and other personal responsibilities. Balancing all of those things at the same time can be really challenging. Handling delays and cancellations. So what do you do if you're traveling from one place to another for meetings and you've had a flight canceled and you find out you're going to be a day late to something or miss some meetings? Those things happen, but it's about how you handle them. Managing language barriers is a huge one. So this is my office. That's me and Sana. We're both on the screen right now. And we're certainly happy to talk to students about other study abroad opportunities and virtual international opportunities that exist. We're doing the pandemic has caused us to do some things that we have never done before. So we're now offering virtual international internships at the 3 centers that AU operates outside of the United States. Those are great opportunities for students to have an additional international experience. You can check our website, it's above, and you're certainly welcome to schedule an appointment with us if you'd like to speak more. Our appointment scheduling link is available on our website.
And then this is the Office of Career Engagement. So you can see on the screen, we have a kind of an advising and coaching side. So we will work with you to really help represent your experience, to prep for those interviews. And then we also have our employer relations team. So they are actively sourcing the positions and working with recruiters who are so interested in meeting with you and really are looking for students who have that global experience. And I've mentioned a few of our different resources. Again, especially being in a virtual environment, we want to make sure that you're aware of all the virtual resources that you can access on your own time. So again, Handshake is the big one. This is our jobs and internships platform. You can update your settings to make it clear the types of opportunities you're looking for. And it's almost kind of like the Netflix of jobs and internships, where then it will start to adjust the types of opportunities it suggests to you based on what you've said you're interested in. And then I've highlighted along the right-hand side several of our other resources. We mentioned VMOC, which will provide personalized feedback on your resume and your cover letter. big interview, which again will enable you to practice interviews. You can decide if you want it to be an easy or a hard interview, and they will adjust it accordingly. You can record yourself then to see, provide yourself some feedback and also get AI-powered feedback. Career Shift, another opportunity to find jobs and internships. It's a web aggregator that will pull whether it's posted on an individual job board or a company website. And you can find jobs anywhere throughout the US, the UK, and Australia. Going Global, if you're looking for international work opportunities, Going Global is a fantastic resource. It essentially has job boards for all the different countries that you could think of, and then will help prepare you with specific advice for applying for roles in that country, right? Because sometimes the resume advice or interview advice might differ slightly depending on where you're going to be. And they work with folks specifically who are in those different countries and locations to say what is the most up-to-date advice in this area. But again, we'll help connect you with opportunities if you're looking to work internationally. You can also find opportunities in the US, but we find again, if you're looking for anything outside the US, this is going to be a really fantastic resource. Lock in You will provide you with opportunities specifically in China, India, Japan, Korea, and Malaysia. So that's another fantastic opportunity. Whether you have lived in one of those areas before, or if you are looking to work there. Vault, Career Library full of guides, and then Alumni Fire, another opportunity for you to connect with alums. So this can be a great way, in addition to LinkedIn, to be able to either reach out to someone who's in a specific area that you're interested in or has been, or again, just to make some connections. So you can access all of these resources via Handshake. If you go under, again, if you go under resources, you can see them listed there with some additional information. And then we've also listed here, just for the Office of Career Engagement, some ways that you can engage with us via social media. The link up at the top is a SharePoint site that will kind of summarize a lot of our resources, but help you walk through some specific career management, again, information to help you with your search.
I'll add that LinkedIn AU and Kogod have some resources available to you through LinkedIn Learning. And that can be a really valuable resource if you're looking for ways to sort of better understand how to talk about your international experience. There's a lot under international communication that I think is really valuable on LinkedIn Learning. So I encourage checking that out. We have some time for questions. So if anybody has questions, please feel free to type them into the chat. Or if you want to be unmuted or have your video turned off. I think Sana can do that if you put that in the chat. You're of course also always welcome to follow up directly with any of us, and we're happy to answer your questions at any time.
Do we have any questions?
Nothing? Okay. Well, in that case, thank you for being here. Please don't hesitate again to follow up with my office or with Andrea and her colleagues in the Career Center. And we hope to hear from you soon. Everybody have a good afternoon.
Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Bye, Andrea. Bye, Sana. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.